Welcome to Session 2 of the FSS Window Pro Tips and Tricks. The purpose of this session is to explain a recommended best practice for strategic window naming while using the FSS Window Pro app to significantly increase your productivity on consults and technical measures. Our agenda today is to cover suggestions for naming windows by the window treatment you will offer the customer and taking extra measurements while you're at the client's location. When we see a window that looks like this, you may look at it and say, that's one window, it's inside one casing. Therefore, we would just simply call this window A. If you are going to sell one treatment for the entire space, then absolutely the window should be classified as window A within the app. But if for some reason that owner wants to be able to open these two doors separately and still have a shade down in the middle, then we would think of this as three windows, A, B, and C. And then you would be able to use the app to specify the dimensions that you require for these three separate windows and their treatments. Thinking about what kind of product you're going to sell will affect how you want to add that window into the app, whether it's being added as window A or being added as multiple windows A, B, and C. When you have special naming situations like this, it's good to capture this in the notes so you're able to remember how you named the windows and later communicate with your installation team. Next, let's review a scenario for an executive office. This is in the corner of their building, and it's floor-to-ceiling glass with metal frames between panes of glass. The customer desires to have one shade at the top of each section. So this would be our window A. This section is window B. This section is window C. And then moving to the next wall, this section is window D. Because we're going to provide one roller shade that goes from the ceiling to the floor, we then want to think of these whole sections as a single window, A through D. Here, we have a lot of windows in a two-story living room, and you need to decide if treatments will be inside mount or outside mount. If you're doing inside mount, then it's very clear. Each window is going to be named A through O. If you offer outside mount, you could do one outside mount over these two, so that becomes A. Do one here and that could be B, and maybe you split these three to be C. These three could be D, and the last one would be E. Based on doing an outside mount, we'd want to capture our dimensions differently than if they were inside mount. As you can see, understanding how you're going to provide the window coverings impacts how you choose your naming and how you want to capture your measurements in the app. In this scenario, the customer calls you and the only windows they want treatment for are the bottom three. They want the transoms left open. Our suggestion is that since you are already there in the client's space, you should go ahead and look at everything and take the extra dimensions for A, B, and C. You should name the windows appropriately following your standard procedure. That way, you have what you need to sell the client shades for D, E, and F. If that customer calls you 3 months later, you can quote them for those transoms A, B, and C immediately. With our Bluetooth laser device, measuring a transom window for 6 dimensions for 3 heights and 3 widths should take you about 20 seconds or less. So our advice is that you proactively measure the A, B, and C windows while you're there, and if they ever call you back, you are prepared to fully quote them on the spot without having to do a return trip. Measuring and naming windows in this way also keeps you and your installers in a cadence with each other. When they walk into a room and they have a label for installing a shade in window D, they can look at that wall and they know exactly which window is being referenced. In closing, it's always good practice to think about the installation as you're having discussions and taking measurements, so you capture the appropriate dimensions for your quote. When creating the windows in the app, you want to be proactive with extra measurements for future callback and quoting opportunities. Thank you for your time. I hope you found these tips and tricks helpful. Please continue with Lesson 3 if you want to see more tips and tricks.